Welcome to Coach Bennett's podcast, where every run has a purpose, where kindness is hardcore, where this is about running, and this is not about running, where every starting line is a finish line in disguise, where rambling still gets you where you need to be, where pineapple will never ruin your pizza, and the sodas, adult and not adult kind, are always cold, and where there is room on the starting line for everybody. I'm Coach Bennett. Thank you for letting me be a part of your day. Let's get started.
Well, welcome. Welcome. Come on in to episode 112 of Coach Bennett's podcast. This one entitled Building Confidence. Yeah, baby, building confidence. Because confidence is something that can be built up. In fact, confidence is something that can be added to, something that can grow, which also means that it is something that can regress, something that can be torn down, ripped apart. So this is an especially important episode. Now, I've had an episode about confidence. I love the word confidence. I love the definitions of confidence. We're going to talk about all of that. But what I haven't done is really give you a whole bunch of different ways that you can build confidence, or build back confidence, or build up confidence, build upon confidence that's already there. Because as we all know, confidence plays a significant role in how we take on challenges, how we handle success, how we handle setbacks. So, is this an important episode? You better believe it's an important episode. And is this episode about running? Of course this episode is about running. This episode is also not about running. Confidence is not something that you just find between the start and finish lines. It is something you find beyond those lines as well. So let's talk a little bit about what confidence means. Now, if you've done runs with me before, if you've read some of the newsletters that I write, if you've listened to this podcast before, you've heard me define podcast as the acknowledgement, as the appreciation of our own abilities and accomplishments. That's what confidence is all about. And the reason why it's such an extraordinary definition is because oftentimes we believe confidence is this belief that we can accomplish something, okay? Meaning in the future, or about to do, in the moment, we can do this. When really what it is it's appreciating and acknowledging those things we've accomplished, those things we've achieved already. That's right. So it's not predicated upon this belief that we can do something we haven't done before or we're about to do. It's actually all about appreciating, acknowledging accomplishments and achievements we've already done. That's why I think so many people struggle with being confident, because they struggle appreciating and acknowledging their own accomplishments and achievements. So first and foremost, you need to know what confidence means. And if you're struggling with confidence, I don't want you to be looking ahead. I don't want you to think you have to, have this massive self-belief that you're going to accomplish what's next. What I want you to do is pause for a moment and think about everything you've already accomplished. And if you're struggling with that part, therein lies why you're struggling with being confident. You're having a hard time appreciating yourself. You're having a hard time acknowledging the things you've already done. And if you're thinking right now like, well, it's because I haven't done anything. Well, you're proving my point, because you have. And you need to have an appreciation of what you've already done. And we're going to talk about how to do that. All right? That's one of the things we're going to discuss during this podcast. Now that we know what confidence means, I want you to just have this as kind of something that is traveling through this entire conversation. It's this idea of respecting the run. And what I mean by that is respecting what it takes to do a run. And you can pick what kind of run it is. It could be a tempo run, it could be a fartlek run, it could be intervals, it could be a 60-minute run, it could be a 6-minute run. It could be a hilly run, it could be a run on the beach, it could be a run when you're stressed out, it could be a run where you feel great, it could be a hilly run, It could be a run in a park. It could be a run around a track. It doesn't matter. The point is, do you respect the runs that you do? Do you respect the efforts that you give in order to accomplish these runs? Do you respect all you have to do to give yourself an opportunity to go for a run? Finding time in your schedule, fulfilling the other responsibilities and obligations you have in your life. Do you respect some of the runs that you've gotten through? Those hard runs, those tough runs, those struggle runs, the stressed out runs, the runs where you're overtired, the runs where it's hot and humid, the runs where it's cold and rainy, the runs where you thought you were going to get to run with a group and you had to run alone, the runs that you had to run at night because guess what? The planned run in the afternoon didn't take place because life just got in the way. Do you respect all of the efforts you have to do just to get to the starting line and over that starting line? Do you? Do you respect all of the efforts you give during a run? Good runs, great runs, mediocre runs, terrible runs, fantastic runs, legendary runs, forgettable runs. Do you respect the run? Because what you're going to find is if you develop the habit, and it's a great habit to have, of respecting the runs, respecting what it takes to do these runs, respecting the conditions that the run is taking place in, you're going to find yourself, how crazy is this, respecting the runner doing those runs. That's what's going to happen. And that is a key ingredient to building confidence. It's a key ingredient to remaining confident. It's a key ingredient to being confident when things aren't going great. Do you respect the run? If you do, you're going to be more likely to respect the runner. And yes, I'm talking about you. And here's the thing. Now, I work with athletes all the time. All of you know that. I have athletes tell me like, well, it wasn't that far. It wasn't that fast. I only did this. It was just this. Now, here's the thing. Most people will think they're being very humble when they say that. I think you're being incredibly arrogant. That's what I think. When you say, I just ran 5K, or I only run for 30 minutes, or I'm not that fast, I only run 8-minute pace, or 12-minute pace, or 13-minute pace, whatever it may be, to me that seems very arrogant. It seems very dismissive of all of the people who can't run 5K in a row, who don't run 12-minute miles, who do not have the fitness or the strength to go out and run for 30 minutes or 50 minutes or 70 minutes. When you say, well, it's just a 4K tempo, it's kind of arrogant to me. People think they're being self-deprecating. They think they're being humble. I think being humble is being able to acknowledge what you do, appreciate what you do, and know that there's upside, to know that there's the potential to be better, to constantly be striving to find ways where you can have more fun in your run, where you can push more or pull back, be smarter, more intelligent about it, be more graceful in how you handle things. But in order to do those things, to say, I can get better, you need to be able to admit that you're pretty good where you are. That's okay. I'm not saying you have to be, eternally grateful for the fitness that you're in right now. Maybe you're not that fit. Maybe you wish you were fitter. Maybe you're going to be fitter in the future. Maybe you were fitter in the past. But you need to own your fitness. You need to respect the athlete that you are today. And if you can only, your words, run for 5 minutes, respect the run. Remember? And you don't respect the run by diminishing the run, nor do you respect the runner by diminishing the efforts of the runner. So to me, I think there's a little bit of arrogance when we're self-deprecating, when we put ourselves down, when we diminish our own efforts. Now, most people are probably having a hard time wrapping their head around this, but if you were diminishing the efforts of someone else, if you were diminishing the runs of someone else, if you were diminishing the paces and distances that someone runs, would you consider that arrogant? Well, then why is it not arrogant when you're doing it to yourself? Yeah, sit with that one for a little while. So I think one of the key components of building confidence is being humble. By the way, I also think it's one of the key ingredients to being great. Being humble. Great athletes, consistently great athletes, know there is upside. They have more potential. There are opportunities for growth. Those are the attributes I look for when I'm trying to find an athlete that I think, you know what, they got what it takes to be great. So be humble. Don't be arrogant. And what that means is, again, respecting the run, respecting the runner, and acknowledging and appreciating the accomplishments and achievements of that runner. Another thing that I think you should do if you want to build confidence is document you. That's right. Write it down. You know I'm always talking about keeping a running journal or a running log or a diary. Document what you're doing. Because if you want to build confidence, and we've gone over the definition of confidence, you're going to need to know what you've done so you can appreciate and acknowledge what you've done. And the best way of doing that is to document it. I know your phone probably has some history, and your app that you use probably, keeps a tally of the meters, the minutes, and the miles, but I want you to be writing down what you're doing. Because remember, I told you, in order to respect the run, you have to understand what the runner needed to do that run. You need to take into account things like the weather. You need to take into account those responsibilities and obligations I was talking about. The fact that you had to sit through an entire day of school before practice, and then you had to do the run, or you had to do the run and then sit through an entire day of school, or go to work, or be at home taking care of the family. These are all things that are important if you want to truly respect the run and the runner. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is by documenting it. So write it down. I don't care if it's a full-fledged, nerdy running log you're doing it in, or it's an old school marble notebook. The point is, write it down, document it. Not just how far, not just how fast, not just how long. I want to know how you felt. I want to know how the run went. I want to know how you feel about what you just accomplished and achieved. I want you to feel how it was to do this again after the race by thinking through it, processing it. 30 minutes later, 2 hours later, 4 hours later, whenever you sit down and put pen to paper or type this out, where you can actually process what you did, where you have another chance to acknowledge and appreciate what you've done. If you go through this exercise about the exercise that you just did, what you're going to really be doing is strengthening that confidence muscle. There you go. So document it, all right? Document it. And remember, when it comes to confidence, all right, it's not about having some belief that it's guaranteed you're going to do it. There is a faith and a belief to an extent that I'm going to try to do this and there's a good chance it's going to happen. But remember that whether or not it happens plays no part in whether or not you are confident. The confidence has to come before the outcome. So this is where I think other runners struggle too. They think they have to know it's going to work out. And now here is the struggle on the starting line, because you can't know whether or not it's going to work out. And when athletes struggle with this, where they say, I'm not confident because I don't know whether or not this is going to work out, they think, I'm insecure, I'm low on confidence, this isn't good. No, you have no way of knowing whether or not it's going to work out. You will never have any way of knowing whether or not it's going to work out. The unknown are where those butterflies come from, because it's a risk. And the more you put into it, the more passionate about this that you are, the more it matters to you, the greater number of butterflies are going to show up, the more nervous you're going to feel, the more shaky you may feel in whether or not you believe this is actually going to happen. The key here is, again, acknowledging and appreciating your own abilities and achievements. So what that means is when you get to the starting line, it's not about what's about to happen. It's about what has already happened. And what that tells you is that you have what it takes to try. you have what it takes to put in a great effort in pursuit of whatever this goal is. It means you've got a shot. Now, again, I'm making certain assumptions here. I'm making certain assumptions that your training has led this, to you believing this. It's pointing in the right direction. Maybe you have a coach. Maybe you are your own best coach. But the point is that you have a certain amount of data, of experience, of insight coming from your training, from the work that you've put in, from the efforts that you've given. So now you can confidently stand on a starting line with the knowledge that, you know what, I've got what it takes to give my best, and my best may be enough to accomplish what I want to accomplish. I have the fitness. I have put in the work, and here I am, and this might happen. That's all you get. That's what you get. You cross the line, you give your best effort, and it might work out. It might not, though. And here's where being a confident athlete, I think, really helps out. When it doesn't work out, if you still have that capability of acknowledging and appreciating your own achievements and accomplishments, when it doesn't work out, you still have that. This may not have worked out, but that does not mean I do not have an appreciation for what I've already accomplished. It does not mean I cannot acknowledge what I have already achieved. This didn't work out, but it doesn't mean all those other things that did work out didn't work out. No, they did. I am still confident. I am still that athlete that was on the starting line saying this might happen. Maybe it didn't happen this time, but I know I've put in the work. I know I have the experiences. I know I have given the great efforts. I can come back to another starting line and try again. To me, that's the greatest gift a confident athlete has, that ability to come back to a starting line. That's what is so powerful. Are they shaken by something not working out? Of course. Are they disappointed? Absolutely. Maybe they're even heartbroken because they had poured so much of themselves into this effort and it didn't work out. It doesn't mean you have to lose confidence. No, you can be upset. You can be disappointed. You can be heartbroken and confident. Because what is confidence? It's not about what hasn't happened. It's about what has happened. And yes, you can be confident from efforts that didn't work out the way you wanted, because you can look at them and with the right set of eyes, you can find what you did right. You can see what you did wrong. You can become a smarter athlete. And as a result, you can look at a poor race, a bad race, a race that didn't do well, as an accomplishment in many different ways. It can be an achievement in many different ways, even if it's not the outcome you wanted. More than anything, it's an experience, and an experience is always something you can learn from. And if you learn from it, you are a better athlete because of it. That is something that can build your confidence too. The last thing I'm going to say here, because this one's going to be a quickie, because somebody who actually asked for it said, hey, maybe you could spend 20 minutes talking about how to build confidence. And I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try to give you like exactly 20 minutes because this is a great idea and I'm going to do that. And if they had asked for 30, I'd probably still give 20 because I think this is a 20-minute kind of thing. Real quick, let's get in, let's get out. This is not one of those things we have to exhaust the conversation, okay? You can listen to this. You can go, I got a couple of really good points in here. I'm not exactly how many good points. I'm probably going to title it like 5 ways to build confidence or 7 ways. I'm not exactly sure how many are in there. I don't know if anyone's ever counted and actually called me out on it, even though every time I do something like this, I mention, I'm not quite sure how many tips I'm really giving you. I don't think I've ever given less than. I think I usually give more than, but who knows? If you're counting, let me know. Hopefully this was 5 or more ways to build confidence. But the last thing I'm going to throw in here is set yourself up for success. Success builds confidence. Remember, go back to the definition, all right? I mean, what are you appreciating? You're appreciating accomplishments and achievements, things that you were successful at. A lot of times people think that if they're setting themselves up for success, they're setting the bar very low. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying just on the big race days, the exclamation point days. I'm saying set yourself up for success by being a smart athlete, by being a good coach. A lot of times athletes' confidence gets shaken, one, because they don't know what confidence really means, but two, because they set themselves up for failure. They put themselves in very precarious situations that they don't need to be in. I'll give you an example. We've had a little heat spell here in Portland. And if an athlete has the option of running inside on a treadmill or running earlier in the morning or waiting for the sun to set, well, that's setting themselves up for success. Running at 2, because in the last couple of weeks, that's when you've been running at 2, because it's been pretty moderately, warm but not hot. And it's, been easy to run at that time because it's, nice. It's really nice out at 2 p.m. But if there's suddenly a heat spell and 2 p.m. is going to be a very, very hot time of day, right around the hottest part of the day, right around the strongest sun of the day, and you go out for a run, and suddenly the run doesn't go well, and your confidence gets shaken because you're equating how good you are, not with everything that you've accomplished, but with what you have failed at doing, which is what so many athletes do. They don't look at what they've accomplished, they look at what they failed at doing, and that's where they try to be confident from, and they wonder why they're not confident. And you, instead of the next day, when it's still hot, running at a different time, you run at 2 again. And now you've got 2 crappy runs in a row. And you're wondering why you're starting to doubt yourself. Well, it has nothing to do with your fitness. It doesn't. It has nothing to do with how good you are. It has nothing to do with how strong you are. It has to do with the fact that you've set yourself up for failure. You've set yourself up to not be as successful as you could have been if you had just changed when you were running. You can extrapolate all different types of issues you're going to have from stringing together a whole bunch of bad runs in hot weather. But on top of that, just think about how different everything would be, not from getting any fitter, just from running at a different time of day. It's also like not knowing the workouts you're doing. It's amazing to me how many people run too hard and then they beat themselves up when really there's nothing wrong with them. It's the training that's wrong. But because people oftentimes head into things ignorant, and ignorance is not a bad word unless it's something you're not remedying, then yes, okay, it becomes, willful ignorance becomes stupidity after a certain point. But if you don't know what you're doing, ask for help. If you're out there and your runs are constantly hard and difficult and you have to stop every couple of minutes, you're running too hard. You're not a crappy runner. You don't suck at running. You're training the wrong way. If I was coaching you in basketball and I was teaching you the wrong way to play basketball, and every time you went into a game, you kept turning the ball over, it's the practice, it's the training. You could be a great basketball player, but if you're trained the wrong way, you're never going to be as good as you could be. So I want you to be documenting what you're doing. Yes, this is back to the writing stuff down, because there's information there about you. What works, what doesn't work, what was a hiccup, what was a stumble, what was a barrier that you ran into and couldn't get through, what are those barriers that you busted right through. They're going to be in there, and as a result, you're going to become a smarter athlete. You're going to find ways to set yourself up for greater success. And if you can start to experience success, if you can become a more intelligent athlete, you're going to love this sport even more. And the more you love this sport, the harder you will work for it. The harder you will work for the runner. The harder you will work for you. The more confident you will become as a result. So, that's the episode 112. I think it's 5 ways to build confidence, or 7 ways, or 6 ways, maybe 8 ways. I'm not quite sure. The point is, hopefully by the end of this, you've got a bunch of ways that you can work on your confidence, and this is something you can always be working on. If the background you're hearing the dogs bark, those are my dogs. They're probably saying, dude, you went over 20 minutes, you got to wrap it up. So I'm going to wrap it up. So thank you for listening. Thank you if you're following the podcast or subscribe to the podcast on any of the different platforms that play podcasts. Thank you. Thank you for sharing it. Thank you for rating and reviewing it. I saw a whole bunch of reviews come in recently, so if you haven't reviewed it yet, please give a rating and a review. And thank you, as always, for being a part of this community. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and I'll meet you on the next starting line. Thank you so much for listening to Coach Bennett's podcast today. And if you haven't already subscribed or set yourself as a follower to the podcast, I really hope you would. And make sure you check out the show notes, because in those show notes, you're going to find a link to Coach Bennett's newsletter and all the social media sites I'm on, like Instagram and Threads and Cameo and Blue Sky and Nope, not on that one anymore. So all the ones I am on, you're going to find it in the show notes, so check that out as well. And as always, thank you again for listening to Coach Bennett's podcast. Until next time, you keep taking care of yourself and each other.